Today we're going to talk about something very quick because one of my members asked me about wiring of XLR plugs. And I thought it would take some time before introducing to towards the studio. So I figured before we start actually running around the building and making everybody's life misery, I would show you some diagrams to help you understand our setup a little bit. Now, granted, they're only rough sketches. And I also have a couple of XLR plugs with me. This one's new, just never been used. This one is wired correctly, but I had to cut the end off because my M68 MC has male connectors on it. So I had to rewire this plug to properly match that. And so this is the stub that's left that I cut off. I left enough stub that I could splice on wire if I need to. Although soldering itself is actually very simple. So without any further ado, let's switch over to the other camera. Okay, now here we have what says here, XLR wiring. And I'm going to explain this very quickly because this phone eats high definition memory like you won't believe. Let's start with the basics here. This is your standard wiring for an XLR. This represents here is the braid of the wire. Okay, and this braid is going to pin 1. Pin 1 is the frame ground if you want to use RS 422 or 485 parallels. And we need to talk about the DMX in a minute, but let's talk about this wiring. Now we have number 2, which is across from the shield, is hot. Now hot is usually has a certain color. I'll go through the colors diagrams in a second because it does get a little confusing. Number 2 is, or 3 is cold. Now what that means is that this is actually would be more like your neutral wire if you're using AC electrical parallels. So this would be like your ground pin of your outlet. This will be your neutral wire, and this will be your hot or live wire. The coloring codes have varied over the years. Some companies use one, some companies use another. So we'll start with the first one, which is pin 1. Usually it's a copper braid, or it could be an aluminum braid, or even a copper-clad aluminum braid. Unfortunately, when soldering copper-clad aluminum, you have to deal with the fact that soldering the wire needs a very low heat iron, or it will melt away on you. The colors are traditionally were used of red, a brown, and some countries use black. In the U.S., you might see black on the hot, just like you see in electrical wiring. In Europe, sometimes you'll see it white and black neutral here. I'm just here, just common colors. What you might see is red, brown, and black. On pin 3, which is the equivalent of the neutral, the 2 common colors are white and blue. Now, I have 2 XLR connectors. This one is wired correctly and these are different style connectors. There's another style which is very similar to this one. You can see it's got a nice little key pin right here, and I did make sure the wires were right before I came on camera. Make sure I didn't have egg on my face. So this one here is, let me get the screw up. Okay. And here we see, again, the wrapper color schema. Okay, you have your braid. Oh, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. Okay, it's a little off, but again, this is where you have to watch out for wiring colors because actually this is kind of right and it's kind of wrong. Here's the braid, but now here on 3, they're using red. And then on 2, they're using white. This is a little bit wrong, but as long as you're not trying to mix colors for different kind of manufacturers and all your wires are the same, ideally it should be braid, white, and red. Okay, but they got it backwards, so they got it as braid, red, and white. Okay, at least this cable maintains the shield integrity, which is important because that cuts back on hum. If you did it like the cheap Chinese cable, you had the braid here on this terminal here, which is neutral, and you have the neutral on here. You basically create what they call an unbalanced cable. And believe me, it doesn't help anybody. These connectors here are similar to a Switchcraft Canon connector. They have this rubber boot on the end. I kind of like these things because I kind of grew up with them as a kid. They're pretty easy to work with if you do it correct. Notice it has a string relief, in this case, that crimps on the end. So, it's definitely a positive string relief. And, also let me put this back in the boot here. And, yeah. And then just like the other cable, there's a there's like a little pin, notification. Oh, come on. You have to get so frightened. Okay. Oh. That wasn't going to help me any. Alright, so basically you got this key. You got this key here. And what's that happen? There, just this is definitely not toolless. This has a screw. And this uses a very small screw. So an eyeglass screwdriver is needed to put in and out the screw. And, so, okay, so this connector here is definitely not toolless. This connector here is a brand new connector never used yet. This is a 3-piece. You have the outer boot. Okay, see how it screws on like that? You have a string relief in the center. It's just kind of hard to get out. And since this is a female connector, this has a so this is the sleeve, and this is the boot. This is the string relief grommet or gland, okay, and then of course you have the actual female connector here, and you'll see that basically, and this one here, which is the same kind that was miswired, is you got places for your 3 leads right here. This is your frame ground of your cable down here. That's what this tang is for. That's not a signal ground. And there's a reason why there's an isolation to it. But like you can see the pins here. So this is here is where the braid goes. Your neutral and your hot. And you can see that they are slightly different heights. I did not notice that until now, but it's still, that gives you an idea how this works. So, let's get this back together. And when it goes together, once you solder the wire, you just line up the pins. So like this. See? And you just put it in place. Come on, don't upstage me today, okay? You can actually see there's an identification pin. You can't really see it, but there's a little marker right here. Okay. Well, another way to mark it is check it to see like that and this. And then, of course, once you start the wire on, you put the steering relief on. Right now, there is no wire on that, so let me make sure it lines up quickly. This one that goes on like this. Oops. You can see if you look in here, there's a little marker that tells you how everything lines up. Okay, and then of course, when you screw this together like that. By the way, some of these connectors come with different brands, have different ideas for solution to how to connect these things. Termination. This is just one brand that is very commonly seen on eBay. It's a new trick type plug, and you can see that if it's properly done, it's just staying in the same place. Okay, so now let's get to the actual old studio setup, because the new mixer isn't yet quite implemented exactly the way I want to do it in the end. But here's the way this works. Here's the M67 microphone that's on the little table. This represents the M68 mixer. Oh, I'm sorry. This is, I got it wrong here. Okay, it's called a SM57. Not. What? Let's see. I got this one. This would be. Okay, so this is an SM57. This is the M68 mixer. Okay, so there we go. So this is the SM57. That's on my coffee table. That's going by XLR cable to the M68 mixer. The output through an RCA cable is going to the selector box that selects between two inputs. Now, I didn't show you the details, but since this is mono, the selector box is stereo. And that also selects between that and a standard turntable over here, which we used to play our records. Then the final sound output goes to two places. The first one is the studio amplifier, which goes to our speakers, and the other one, the audio cable, tees off and goes into the Formac FS10 composite to DV converter. Obviously, that also takes the camera feed from here into that as well. And then this goes to the PowerMac G5. Then the same bus is shared with the other Mac, the iMac Intel Core 2 Duo, which has the same Formac FS10 on it. So that means that two Macs using the same hardware take the signal in and process it. Now, the M68 is a pretty nice little mixer for the most part. It's relatively simple. It's just like the new mixer. It has rotary dial controls, but it goes a little bit more sophisticated. Okay. All right. So now we understand the wiring of that. So let's switch back to the other camera again. Now you can see how everything is physically wired. Gives you a quick idea of how the electrics work and how to wire an XLR plug. But it may not be the most sophisticated video in the world. And I'm going to next show you a tour of the studio itself and show you the actual hardware. I'm not going to go into every last nook and cranny, but I'm going to certainly give you the basics of why we use and what we use and what is the best way to do it. So, let's get started with that tour. Start by talking about the input stage of the amplifier. This is the Shure SM57 microphone. It's connected by your standard XLR cable right here. And it goes all the way up here to the input stage. So I'm going to need to explain this because this and how it relates to the diagram. Okay, this is the mixer. You see that this one, like the Behringer Xenix Q1202 USB, uses rotary knobs, which doesn't bother me too much. Okay, this is the main microphone. And these three others, this one, and this one, are for three other microphones. Right now I mostly use just 1 and 2, but in this, oh yeah, the last knob here, it says auxiliary. You may not be able to see it, but it does say that there is used to connect like a output source, like a MP3 player or turntable or things like that. And I'm going to show you the back because I might end up disconnecting some wires. So let me just disconnect these cords so we can show you this without making a real mess here, especially the left. Okay, so here's I'm gonna unplug this cord here. Okay, and let's take a look at the mixer itself. I did a review on this a couple years ago, and you'll see it has very common for a lot of 60s mixers. It's got male jacks instead of female jacks, and because of that reason, I have to use adapters, because this comes from the 60s. So on the first cord here, I actually put on a female connector. On the second cord here, I'm using a pigtail and a really messy setup here. You can see it's a pigtail here. It's going to the wire. And, of course, the audio output is going to the switch box I mentioned in the video. I'm just going to drag it down as you can see here. And it's in this position here, A. That's sending output of the M68 to the receiver, the radio receiver at the bottom here. This is the plug here. And a wire adapter that connects the 2 channels to stereo. And, the cable is using a wire schema that is very common from the 60s called long tail wires. Long tail XLR cable or audio cables. You can see it looks a little longer. I have an adapter on it just because this is the way. Come on, where's my? Okay. You see this here, that's the standard modern version. And so it's just a slightly bit longer. You can see it's pretty close, almost the same length. It actually is technically a slightly bit different. It's the diameter is a little different, so this one seems to the BNC plug seems to grab better connection. Okay. So when I'm using the turntable, I got my turntable preamp right here. It's a pile preamp, and that way I can listen to my favorite records. And yeah, that's my turntable. It's a Gerward 210 from 1965, and it still works. As I repaired it, replaced the parts, and greased it, so it's all set. Now, where does all the audio output come into? Well, it comes in through these interconnect cables down here on the floor. So there's several cables being trunked along, and then let me move good old Mom Bell real quick here. It goes through to this Formac FS10, which also captures the video and audio, then converts it into a Firewire signal, which then goes into my PowerMac G5, where I can then process it and edit it. Then, as you saw some of the cables show, the audio and video also go to another the Intel Core 2 Duo machine, which just goes the identical way. So anyway, that's how it's done. It may seem kind of stupid, but you know what? It works. And now I want to go back to you, because we're going to talk more about two more XLR interfaces that you really need to watch out for, because one will literally kill you, and the other one could literally kill your gear. Now, I mentioned, as I said at the last break, that there's two other uses for the XLR cables. And one of the two uses, as I said, could kill you, and one could kill your gear. Well, let's talk about the one that can kill you first, because it's the most dangerous and most serious. In some movie cameras, the XLR plug is used to carry mains voltage to the motor drive of the camera. My Bell & Howell camera happens to have such an XLR plug. If you look at the cord, it's pretty simple. The XLR plug, the female end, is connected to the mains cord. Okay, it's got a 2-pin plug. It doesn't have the earth connected. And so pins 2 and 3 are carrying mains voltage. Okay, now clearly if you plug that into a microphone circuit, it's going to blow your equipment sky high. That's no joke. If you happen to be in the wrong place when you plug that cord in, you're going to go sky high. And that's equally not a joke. So, for that reason, you need to make sure to check what the XLR plug is for before you plug in your gear. Never assume that it's just connected to a microphone, especially if you got a movie camera connected in the same location. That's an old camera like the Bell & Howell Filmo, like I got. Like the H16, which is the high capacity 16mm magazine with the motor drive. That thing, as I said, the DC and AC synchronous motor are both using XLR cables to power that. In fact, I should bring this up about the AC motor. The AC motor for synchronous audio sync, pilot tone sync, is using the same plug as the 120 volts mains plug that goes to the AC/DC brushed motor. So if you ever get a camera and you see a motor and it's got a XLR plug, male plug on the other side, like you saw my mixer, be wary, because that means that the cable that it's connected to is gonna bite you in the ass. Don't get mixed up with your microphone gear, because you'll cry and you'll destroy everything and potentially die in the process. The second one could potentially damage your gear. Is more of for the use of DMX. DMX. I don't exactly know. I think it just said so. Digital media exchange, I believe. And what that's used for is for controlling things like lighting. I'm not going to go into much in the protocol here, but that's not the point. It uses what they call RS485 protocol, which is a bidirect or a differential twisted pair with shield. Does not sound kind of like USB? Yeah, well, it's not USB, so don't plug your USB in there, because the voltage ranges is positive 12, minus 12, and if you plug in your standard USB hardware, unless it's got really good, proper high voltage protection, it will be turned into scrap. Okay, and obviously the plug is different. It's an XLR plug. In short, with DMX cables, there's actually in a new standard has 5 pins, but some lower cost transmit only have the standard 3-pin plug. Now, if you've got DMX, it's going to use something much closer to category 5 wire. So not the same thing as microphone cord. It's not twisted. Microphone wiring is not twisted. So don't use microphone cord for DMX, and you sure don't want to use DMX wire for microphone, because the microphone will sound like a buzz box, because the shielding is all wrong and the impedance is really wrong. So you need to use the appropriate cables for each one. Also, the last device in the DMX universe needs to be terminated with a 150 ohm resistor connected across terminals 2 and 3. Now, 150 ohm resistors, no problem. But sometimes you'll notice that DMX cables, the wires have blue ends. But that doesn't mean crap, especially for DIY cables. Again, if you don't know what it's connected to, stranger danger. This applies just for wiring as it does for anything else. You better find out what it's going to before you plug it in, especially because most DMX devices will not work properly with a microphone cable, especially not on longer runs. If you're using it for shorter runs, say for like maybe 3 feet, you might be able to get away with it, but it's not recommended to practice it in the DMX universe field to mix XLR audio cables and XLR DMX cables. Remember, DMX is RS485. It's differential positive, negative 12 volts, okay? Which is very common serial bus, but it's high voltage. It's kind of like high voltage differential SCSI. I mentioned that in the SCSI bus in the past. When we talked about the great SCSI bus, that mentioned the same thing. Of course, that's got more pairs of wires, but in this case, the whole point is high voltage differential is not going to be compatible with your microphones either. So if you plug your microphone into a DMX bus, it's likely to pop your microphone and make you cry. So you don't want to mess with that either, because the amount of current that will end up going through your microphone will turn your beautiful SM57 into a piece of aluminium scrap. And then you have to replace the cartridge assembly, and we all know what that's like. Yeah, it's not something I don't get to do on a regular basis either. Okay, so I want you to have fun with the audio, video gear, but please do remember, 1, stranger danger. If you don't know where the wire's going to, check it out before you plug anything in, especially if it's a new installation that you never have no experience with. It could have been a wire from the past, from some application that is not at all compatible with what you're trying to do. Okay? So again, stranger danger. If it's a strange wire, you don't know what it's for, check it out, test it out, and definitely, if it really looks dodgy, throw it out. Don't use any shitty cords. You don't want to use shitty cords, okay? So again, like I said, check it out, test it out, and if it's in doubt in quality, throw it out. Don't be afraid to do that. And make sure to find out ahead of time if it's even connected right. That's why I said about check it out. And make sure you know where it's going to. And then once you gotta probably know is for what your intended purpose is, test it out, make sure it doesn't have any internal shorts, make sure that the wires don't have any broken connections. And if the wires really looks like crap, throw it out. Don't worry about being nice about trying to save copper. If you want to save the copper, bring the wire down to your recycling center and have them recycle the copper connectors, the wire, and materials. But don't use wire as bad, okay? So if the wire's no good, throw it away. Don't worry about it. If the wire's no, but somebody just miswired it like the cheap Chinese cables did, yeah, you can rewire them. But make sure when you do that, make sure to test it out afterwards. Make sure that they work. If they work for you, great. If not, again, throw it out. And if you do see something like I said with the Bell and Howell motor drive using mains voltage on the Canon pins 2 and 3, for the God's sakes, make sure that that cable is clearly labeled so that people know that it is not for audio or DMX circuits. Because the last thing you want to do is potentially blow your equipment up and potentially electrocute yourself in the process. It's smart to be safe and smart to be sorry. So test the stuff ahead of time before you get. I was going to show you the cable, but unfortunately I couldn't quite get my camera. It's kind of buried underneath everything else, and I just wanted to get this video in real quick. So for now, thank you guys for watching this. I hope this will help you understand what you need to know about wiring and what you saw in my studio. I hope you enjoyed that tour. For now, have a nice day. Bye-bye.